board. Right, we are live.
Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Sil.
Good morning, Beena. Good morning. Good morning. Hello, Beena.
Moreness
Hello,
Screen,
hello.
yes. Good morning. Good morning, Screen. Good mornings to everyone who is going to join us live and will watch us recorded later. You all are most welcome to join us in this Moreness-Culture, Moreness space Sil has shared and created for us. You can be yourself, and of course, you can be more. This is a place where you can acquire and aspire to be more than what you have ever been expected, like and expecting from yourself, and also assuming that this is your limits and believing that this is what the maximum can be for me. You can be way more, all caps more than your expectations and assumptions. This is a place where you can. I personally feel that. Oh, I always say that as a qualifier. Oh, this is something like yes, this is for me. I can share my experience that this is a place where you can acquire and extract and create and access value. This is a place where you can, because it is something, it is innate to Moreness culture to not only understand the value but also create the value if it is not obviously being there, and access that, and also make it useful for yourself. It is so empowering to have this understanding. Yes, the value is there, and of course, when you see those things, those values in your context, according to your understanding, according to your situation and circumstances, then you can make it useful for yourself. So this is something very, very interesting about that. And what we are busy with, we are doing nowadays, it's a long project, and we are busy with doing capital R reading of Carlos Castaneda's books about Don Juan, with a very specific intent to connect with Don Juan, and also to connect with the overall intent of all those sharing what Don Juan has been sharing with Carlos. And capital R reading is actually, this is a process where you go beyond what has been said verbally, what has been shared verbally, like in form of words or in sounds or any form. But it is going beyond that. It is going beyond obvious. It is going beyond mundane and local. So go abstract, go with more, connect with flow, connect with intent, connect with the energy. This is the magic of capital R reading, and this is what we are doing right now. So yesterday, when we were reading, and it was Carlos, a poor baby, was really teased really by two fellows, Carlos and Don Venaro, and
Don
their
Juan and Don
tease is not.
Venaro were teasing Carlos.
Yes, and this is not a normal tease. Can you
No.
imagine that just for teasing him, they can create a real threat of a big, huge boulder coming towards you, and the ground is shaking and everything is thumping and all that. Can you imagine that? That type of, it is a Moreness tease right there. This is not
and
the
there's a point
usual.
to it. There's a point and purpose to it. Many points and purpose. They're not just doing this for
Yes,
the fun of it, right?
but
And
but but
they're very
even
serious
even
about
if
what they're doing.
Oh, even if they are doing just for fun, can you imagine? Normal people cannot do this,
No.
like me and you, and okay. So they are sharing their moreness even when they are teasing him. Of course, there's much more into that, but this is something like it's really living in a wonderland. I really feel that way. Oh my God,
In other
Carlos,
words,
what you are
they are able to change regular reality, at least a perception.
exactly, not only banned, but they can
They have great
actually
power.
create.
They
Oh
have great
yes,
power, in other words. They can
yes,
really
oh yes.
affect Don Carlos's perception in very profound ways. So the last thing that we were busy with Don Gennaro is assisting Don Juan in helping Carlos to perceive, capital P, perceive, to perceive energy directly. And this is a big task. The whole book, the second book, A Separate Reality, it's all about the task of perceiving, right? And the doings of perceiving and getting into perceiving. And they're making every effort to do this. And in order to get him to perceive, he has to quiet down inside, but he also has to let go of the rigidity of his worldview. Carlos has a ridiculously rigid worldview. And that's part of the teasing, is to get him to collapse his worldview. He's too self-important by far. I mean, he's absurdly self-important, and in a very preposterous and ridiculous way. Now, Carlos isn't a typical regular narcissist. He's not doing this on purpose. It's just a function of the culture. He can't help himself, in other words, right? He doesn't even know that he does it, but he does. He does. Shift up just a little bit to get centered here. There we go.
Yes.
Just turn my
So
camera
while you're
just a
doing
little bit.
this, I'm taking care of Instagram and YouTube.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Very good. All right. We'll get going. We will start right now, and I'll pull up the file here and we read. So, I got some. Let's see. Pegadusa. No, I guess that's Pegad USA. Maybe, I don't know. Could be Pegadusa. Anyway, very good. Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us. I'm not sure which one's right, but hello, hello, hello. Pegadusa. I like Pegadusa. It sounds like Pegasus, but like, I don't know, the modern version of Pegasus, maybe the USA version of Pegasus. It's just my imagination. I have fun with stuff like this. So, all right, brilliant, brilliant. May as well, may as well. Let's screen share and we continue. So after what they were doing, Don Gennaro, first he went behind the house and he made Carlos's world shake and all these boulders dropping, and Don Juan was cracking up with laughter. We'll see later on why, right? Uh, in Don Gennaro's art, as he calls it. Yeah. Anyway, Don Gennaro's got a bit of a crude sense of humor, but that's just how Gennaro is, right? And so you can imagine the dropping the boulders now, right? It's got a little extra meaning to it there. And then he said he's going to show him his special technique of hiding. And they went on a walk, and Don Gennaro, Carlos couldn't catch up to him. He was always in front of him, and then he thought he was behind him. And then he went there, and anyway, so he just kind of was a bit illusionary, and this was very baffling to Carlos, and it really kind of threw him out, right? And he had a profound moment of self-awareness and self-realization, which was pretty good for Carlos, right? Okay. So now is we on the next day, October 18, 1970. Do you want to read, Beena? Or not? Okay, never mind. You can read Don Gennaro again if he's in this. Yeah, I don't know if he's here or not. All right.
No, please continue. Please
All
continue
right. Yeah,
because
no problem. No problem.
my network is not great.
Yeah, no worries. I think I understand what Don Gennaro was trying to do the other night, I said to Don Juan. I said that in order to draw him out. His continual refusal to talk was unnerving me. Don Juan smiled and shook his head slowly, as if agreeing with what I had said. I would have taken his gesture as an affirmation, except for the strange glint in his eyes. It was as if his eyes were laughing at me. You don't think I understand? Oh, no, this is Carlos. You don't think I understand, do you? I asked compulsively. I suppose you do. You do, in fact. You do understand that Gennaro was behind you all the time. However, understanding is not the real point. His statement that Don Gennaro had been behind me all the time was shocking to him. I begged him to explain it. Your mind is set to seek only one side of this. He took a dry twig and moved it in the air. He was not drawing in the air or making a figure. What he did resembled the movements he makes with his fingers when he cleans the debris from a pile of seeds. His movements were like a soft prodding or scratching the air with a twig. These peculiar actions are Don Juan operating on the level of perceiving energy directly. So he's doing something with energy, but it just looks to Carlos like he's clearing, he's doing something like this, for instance, right? He's clearing stuff with his hands. But actually he's manipulating energy. Carlos can't see the energy, so he doesn't have the context to understand what Don Juan is doing. Yeah? Very interesting. Very, very interesting. He does lots of stuff like that. Gennaro also. Um, He turned and looked at me, and I shrugged my shoulders automatically in a gesture of bafflement. He drew closer and repeated these movements, making 8 points on the ground. He circled the first point. You are here. We are all here. This is feeling. And we move from year to year. All right, I actually drew out this diagram once upon a time. I wonder if I have it still somewhere. All right, well, we'll see. We'll see. If we need to, I'll go and look for it. You are here. We are all here. This is feeling, and we move from year to year. He circled the second, which he had drawn right above number 1. He then moved the twig back and forth between the 2 points to portray a heavy traffic. There are, however, 6 more points a person is capable of handling. Most people know nothing about them. So he's drawing a figure, really, like more or less a human figure, but it's an energetic figure. And he's got feeling, and he's got a point above it. Now, the way I drew the points, I had feeling and voice and mind, but I suspect that feeling and voice are more or less combined, and then you've got mind. And you're going in between mind and voice and feeling, okay? So we'll see how this drawing comes out. But we express feeling with our voice, and our voice also determines how we feel. Speak differently, you feel differently. I mean, you can hear it in the reading, right? I mean, I feel differently when I read Carlos and when I read Don Juan. I have to make a bit of an effort to read Carlos to change my voice a little bit. When I read Don Juan, I just read him in my natural voice, more or less. Right? They are, however, a little bit more sober, because what he's saying is sober. It's the content that makes for that voice, Beena, by the way. I'm not trying to make a different voice, really, for Don Juan. It's just my normal voice, right? But because the content is very sober, it comes out very sober, right? There are,
Yes.
however, 6 more points a person is capable of handling. Most people know nothing about them. He placed his twig between points 1 and 2 and pecked on the ground with it. To move between these 2 points you call understanding. You've been doing that all your life. If you say you understand my knowledge, you have done nothing new. He then joined some of the 8 points to the others with lines. The result was a long trapezoid figure that had 8 centers of uneven radiation. Each of these remaining 6 points is a world, just like feeling and understanding are the 2 worlds for you. Why 8 points? Why not an infinite number, as in a circle? I asked. I drew a circle on the ground. Don Juan smiled. As far as I know, there are only 8 points 8 points a person is capable of handling. Perhaps people cannot go beyond that. And I said handling, not understanding. Did you get that? His tone was so funny, I laughed. He was imitating or mocking my insistence on the exact use of words. Your problem is that you want to understand everything, and that is not possible. If you insist on understanding, you're not considering your entire lot as a human being. Your stumbling block is intact. Therefore, you have done almost nothing in all these years. You have been shaken out of your total slumber. True, but that could have been accomplished anyway by other circumstances. All right. So now somebody may be saying, an astute observer who's been paying attention, say, oh, you know what, Sil, you and Beena are always talking about ADU, awareness, discernment, understanding. But we always add application. ADU is merely a tool to get to application. When Don Juan says
Exactly.
you've got to go beyond understanding, your problem is that you want to understand everything, and that is not possible. If you insist on understanding, you're not considering your entire lot as a human being, right? The application is going beyond understanding. There's knowing directly. There's silent knowledge. There's capital P perceiving. All of those are applications. Yeah. So you use understanding to get you there. It's not the end point. Intellectualism treats understanding as an endpoint. Carlos is an intellectual. He's from the university. He loves this idea of himself being as an intellectual. And he's an anthropologist. Or at least I think by this time he's already an anthropologist, because he published, when he published the book, the first book in 1968, yeah, that was his thesis. And so it was, he presented to the university, but he also published it, right? So by this time, he is an actual anthropologist. I don't know if that was, maybe he did it for his doctoral thesis or not, or just his regular degree. I don't know. But either way, he's an actual anthropologist. I think he graduated. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure. Anyhow, so we have to understand this application. When you apply things, it's different to understanding. Right? Let's, for instance, take riding a bicycle. Very, very good example. And I've used this many times. Right? And a lot of people say, well, like once you've ridden a bicycle, you know it. Yeah. What did the understanding matter to it? Doesn't matter. But let's go into a little bit further. First, let's take it fully from a Moreness point of view, specifically riding a bicycle. You've never ridden a bicycle before. If you come at it from a Moreness point of view, first we have awareness. Okay, riding a bicycle, how do bicycles work? And you observe, you study. And then you have a bit of discernment and you go a bit deeper. Oh, bicycles function because of the gyroscopic effect. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, what's that? All right. Well, you do a bit of research, you figure this out. The gyroscopic effect says that a wheel will right itself relative to its axle, right? So if you tire, literally, there are actually videos to do this, and it's quite wonderful to watch. They take a rope and they take a wheel just with the axle separate, right? And they tie the rope to one side of the axle. So the wheel is now hanging horizontally like this, right? And tied from the axle. And then they spin the wheel. It's the most incredible thing. And then the wheel starts to right itself. So it's quite fantastic. Even though it's hanging from the rope on one side of the axle, right? I mean, you'd think it would fall over. Nope, it rights itself, even though the rope is only tied to one side of the axle. Isn't that incredible, Beena?
Yes.
It's too
Yes.
fantastic, right? Because
Exactly.
that's the gyroscopic effect. A spinning wheel rights itself vertically relative to the axle. So now you say, wow, okay, that's why our bicycles work, which means that in order to ride the bicycle, it's not about balance as we assume it is. Well, I understand how to ride a bicycle, just have to learn to balance. No, this is a revelation, what I am saying to most people. Right? And you watch when parents help their kids to ride a bicycle. They help them balance. And the poor kid thinks it's all about balance. And they go very slowly because, of course, the slower you are, the less dangerous it is and the easier to balance. No, that makes it very hard. So if you want to balance on a bicycle, just get up to the minimum speed where the wheel starts to right itself, and you don't need to balance because the bicycle is going to balance itself. So the trick to riding a bicycle is just to get up to minimum speed, which isn't very much. And if you actually watch people riding bicycles, they get on and they push off a little bit and they start pedaling and they have that minimum speed, and there you go. Balance, not an issue because your bicycle balances itself. Now we've applied awareness, discernment, and understanding, right? And it resulted in application. Our understanding led to the application of that push and the first downstroke on the pedal, because that's all you need to get up to minimum speed, right? Then it's balancing, and then you have the second stroke with the other leg on the other side, and there you go, right? Very simple. Very, very simple. Yeah. So, but the application is the deal. Now, once I'm riding my bicycle, and I've ridden a couple of times, I can forget all about all of that gyroscopic effect and balance because my body knows innately what to do. Yeah. I'm
Yes.
understanding with more than my feelings, and all those other points are starting to kick in. Application. Yeah. It's application, it's knowing with the other points. Yeah. But also, Don Juan is going to go further. There are other kinds of, like, capable perceiving. I'm not capable perceiving when I'm riding my bicycle, so I'm not using all the points. I'm maybe using three. Right. Okay.
Mm.
Or I'm feeling the bicycle, so all right, maybe still only two. But still, I'm making the point that once I'm riding the bicycle, the understanding doesn't matter. Yes, the feeling matters somewhat, but the doing is what matters. Yeah, the doing of it is what matters, and you don't think of it afterwards. Right? Even though, if you've never ridden a bicycle in your life, if you just heard me, you're going to have a much easier time. You can go directly, get on a bicycle and ride. End of story. No learning to ride, no training wheels necessary. Nobody needed to help you there and balance you. And like you see the nervous parent behind the kid. Oh, the kid's going to fall. But the trust is what's all that's needed. That's it. And you can do it immediately. For Moreness-Culture, we are looking to have this kind of awareness and discernment and understanding. Why? So that we can apply. It's no good to have it intellectually in your mind. Yeah, no good to feel like you can ride the bicycle. You got to actually go and do it. Yeah, many things we feel like we can do, but right, like well, just take public speaking. Many people feel they can do public speaking or feel they could do a podcast, but when they actually come and do what we're doing now, it's like a big deal. I don't know if you remember, Beena, but I remember when live started on Facebook. It wasn't always in Facebook. There was quite a period when there was no lives, right? And it was like a new
Uh-huh.
feature. And
Okay.
did you see all the posts of people challenging people to go live? Just try it. Just even if nobody comes, doesn't matter. Just try it and do it and challenge yourself. Yeah, it was like this big thing, this big deal to do a live. It was a massive obstacle for people. They didn't just come and do it. Yeah. We just came and we did it. Right? We get more smooth, we get more practice, but it was never an issue for us, right? Because
Wait.
we
Yes.
understand capital P practice, which is the doing that is saying to you, don't trust your understanding, don't trust your feelings. They're not that accurate. When you actually start doing, all that changes, right, Beena? And the first time we came and went
Yes.
live, we adapted, we shifted, we moved, and it was not a
Exactly.
big deal.
Exactly.
So I'm making this point in the context of Don Juan's figure that he's drawing with these 2 points. So far, he says we only operate with feeling and understanding, but that's not enough. We got to, and I want to emphasize this that in Moreness culture, this is what we are making the effort to do. Yes, it is absolutely huge and critical and a big deal. Yeah, we're making every effort to do this. Yeah, to go beyond, to go beyond. It is a big deal. Yeah, yeah, very big deal. All right, just want to check something real quick and then we carry on. Yeah, all right. So I got TikTok working directly from Restream, which is wonderful. I think I figured it out, Beena. I've got to start TikTok, uh, then start Zoom, then close TikTok, then and close Zoom and start again, and then it's there. So all right, seems a bit weird. All right, let's continue. Uh, Your problem is that you want to understand everything, and that is not possible. If you insist on understanding, you're not considering your entire lot as a human being. Your stumbling block is intact. Therefore, you have done almost nothing in all these years. You have been shaken out of your total slumber, true, but that could have been accomplished anyway by other circumstances. After a pause, Don Juan told me to get up because we were going to go to the water canyon. As we were getting into my car, Don Gennaro came out from behind the house and joined us. I drove part of the way, and then we walked into a deep ravine. Don Juan picked a place to rest in the shade of a large tree. You mentioned once, Don Juan began, that a friend of yours had said, when the two of you saw a leaf falling from the very top of a sycamore, that that same leaf will not fall again from that same sycamore ever in a whole eternity. Remember? I remember having told him of the incident. We were at the foot of a large, we are at the foot of a large tree. And now, if we look at that other tree in front of us, we may see a leaf falling from the very top. He signaled me to look. There was a large tree on the other side of the valley. Its leaves were yellowish and dry. He urged me with a movement of his head to keep on looking at the tree. After a few minutes' wait, a leaf cracked loose from the top and began falling to the ground. It hit other leaves and branches 3 times before it landed in the tall underbrush. Did you see it? Yes. You would say that the same leaf will never again fall from the same tree. True? Do you know what's coming, Beena?
No, not exactly. Just wondering.
By implication from the circumstances, the setup from Don, what's going to happen next?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
come on,
cannot put.
Beena. The same leaf is going to fall again.
Yes, but who knows?
Right. I'm just saying, though, the setup
Exactly.
is because you
It's
know Don
very
Juan and
obvious.
Don
Yes.
Gennaro, they're setting Carlos's mind up. It's like, no, this is going to happen, right? I just mentioned this because it's a good skill to practice, to extrapolate, and to anticipate what might happen. The more we practice the skill of anticipation and extrapolation, the better we get at it. And after a while, when you read something like this, it's kind of duh. Now, occasionally there'll be a surprise, which we love. We don't assume, even though we are very skilled at extrapolation and implication, we never assume that it will be so. Because, of course, it is a projection and it's got maybe a 90% chance of being right, but that means it's got a 10% chance of being wrong, which means 1 in 10 you're going to be wrong. So you're always ready for that. But still, it's very helpful. And it's also quite fun, right? Especially if you're watching TV, mystery movies, or whatever. It's fun to practice your skill and see, okay, yeah, okay, I did see it coming, I did see it coming. Because in life, if we can see things coming, of course, makes our lives much, much, much easier. Yes, so it's a fantastically powerful skill. All right. You would say that that same leaf will never fall again from the same tree. True? True. To the best of your understanding, that is true. But that is only the best of your understanding. Look again. I automatically looked and saw a leaf falling. It actually hit the same leaves and branches as the previous one. It was
Wow.
as if I was looking at an instant television replay. I followed the wavy falling of the leaf until it landed on the ground. I stood up to find out if there were two leaves. Carlos, Carlos, come on, really now, he has to have that extra. Yeah. I stood up to find out if there were two leaves, but the tall underbrush around the trees prevented me from seeing where the leaf had actually landed. Not leaves, leaf.
Yes.
Look how Carlos gives himself away. He's just perceived it with his own eyes. Doesn't matter to him, right? But where the leaf had landed, not leaves. Don Juan laughed and told me to sit down. Look, he said, pointing with a head to the top of the tree. There goes that same leaf again. I once more saw a leaf falling in exactly the same pattern as the previous two. When it landed, I knew Don Juan was about to signal me again to look at the top of the tree. But before he did, I looked up. The leaf was again falling. I realized then that I had only seen the first leaf cracking loose, or rather, the first time the leaf fell. I saw it from the instant it became detached from the branch. The other three times, the leaf was already falling when I lifted my head to look. I told that to Don Juan, and I urged him to explain what he was doing. I don't understand how you're making me see a repetition of what I had seen before. What did you do to me, Don Juan? He laughed, but did not answer, and I insisted he should tell me how I could see that leaf falling over and over. I said that according to my reason, that was impossible. Don Juan said that his reason told him the same. Yet I had witnessed the leaf falling over and over. He then turned to Don Gennaro. Isn't that so? Don Gennaro did not answer. His eyes were fixed on me. It's impossible, I said. You're chained, Don Juan exclaimed. You're chained to your reason. I love this quote. This quote is one that really is something that stuck with me all the years. And some of the things that I've read stay with me in the exact way. And I always remember this. You're chained to your reason. A very, very powerful, very, very powerful point. I want to add it to my quote file. Very, very, very powerful point. It's a very big deal. Yes, we have to be careful. Reason is valuable, but we cannot be chained to it. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's a tool. Yes. So again, sometimes people say, "Oh, you're very intellectual." I think Joseph once said this, and I made a big effort to correct Joseph on that point. Please don't call me an intellectual. I may sound like it, but I use it as a tool. Intellectuals stop with intellectualism. No, you cannot. You cannot. You have to understand these things are tools, 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 tools to get you somewhere. They're not the endpoint. They're not the endpoint. I just have to open up all my files here. Get there in a second. There we go. I just want to add it in here. What page were we on? What page were we on? Oh, dang it. 132. Okay. This is a very good practice, right? To plot these quotes. 132. Very, very helpful. Very, very helpful. Because later we're going to sort them, and then we're going to have great fun. He explained, "You're chained," Don Juan exclaimed. "You're chained to your reason." He explained that the leaf had fallen over and over from the same tree, so I would stop trying to understand. In a confidential tone, he told me that I had the whole thing pat, and yet my mania always blinded me at the end. There's nothing to understand. Understanding is only a very small affair. So very small. At that point, Don Gennaro stood up. He gave a quick glance to Don Juan. Their eyes met, and Don Juan looked at the ground in front of him. Don Gennaro stood in front of me and began swinging his arms at his sides, back and forth in unison. "Look, little Carlos, look, look." He made an extraordinary, sharp, swishing sound. It was the sound of something ripping. At the precise instant the sound happened, I felt the sensation of vacuity in my lower abdomen. It was a terribly anguishing sensation of falling, not painful, but rather unpleasant and consuming. It lasted a few seconds, and then it subsided, leaving a strange itch in my knees. In my knees, not abdomen, knees. But while the sensation had lasted, I experienced another unbelievable phenomenon. I saw Don Gennaro on top of some mountains that were perhaps 10 miles away. The perception lasted only a few seconds, and it happened so unexpectedly that I did not have time really to examine it. I cannot recall whether I saw a man-sized figure standing on top of the mountains or a reduced image of Don Gennaro. I cannot even recall whether or not it was Don Gennaro. Yet at that moment I was certainly beyond any doubt that I was seeing him standing on top of the mountains. However, the moment I thought that I could not possibly see a man 10 miles away, my perception vanished. I turned around to look at Don Gennaro, but he was not there. The bafflement I experienced was as unique as everything else that was happening to me. My mind buckled under the strain. I felt utterly disoriented. Your mind buckling under the strain is exactly what they are trying to do. Trying to collapse your world. Trying to collapse your world. So we must be aware of this, right? And I feel. Let me stop the screen share. I want to make a very big point here. Yes, in the path of awareness, which is what Moreness-Culture is all about, what we are all about, right? We're on the path of awareness. The path of awareness, the path into awareness, the path through awareness, the path to awareness. All of them simultaneously. We already have awareness, so we are not going to awareness. But the awareness that we are going to is a different awareness to the one we have now, right? So we are the path of awareness, the path to awareness, the path through awareness, the path into awareness. All possible ones, all happening simultaneously. In this path to awareness, there is something very, very, very profound. And it is also the task of civilization, the task of evolution, which is to overcome instinct. Yeah?
Yep.
Our instinct is to fight for food, for instance, to fight for
Yes.
hierarchy and superiority. Yeah, I mean, look at mating rituals. Look at the instinct of mating. If we acted on our instincts when it came to mating, can you imagine what our civilization would be like?
No
If we
idea.
mated the same way as animals did, it'd be chaos, right?
Hmm.
So we have to overcome that instinct. Yeah, that's what civilization is. That's what evolution is. It is overcoming instinct, which, when you think about it, is a most absurd and profound thing, because you have to do what you know, what you feel inside you is right. You have to treat it as wrong. Isn't that something?
Yep.
All right. So now, on our path to awareness, look at here what's happening to Carlos, right? Yet at that moment I was certain, right? However, the moment I thought that I could not possibly see a person 10 miles away, a man in this case, a man 10 miles away, the perception vanished. Carlos has to overcome what instinctively feels right to him. Possible. It can't possibly be, but yet he's perceiving it. We have to learn to doubt our instincts. We have to learn to doubt what we have believed to be right. This is a very, very tricky and sophisticated maneuver. Yes?
Hmm.
Because that's what we live by. We live by what we know to be right, especially if we're looking to be impeccable. And yeah, you have to go against what that is. Our reason isn't all of it. There's always more. This is why moreness is such a powerful, powerful, powerful point. We have to trust in moreness and be cautious about what we believe to be right.
Hmm.
Does that make sense, Beena? Because there are
Yes.
times when you have to do what's wrong. And this is part of the philosophy of opposite. There are times when we absolutely have to do what is wrong. Every instinct in us shouting it's wrong, 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 wrong. But we have to do it. Yeah?
Exactly.
Capital P perceiving is all about essentially doing what's wrong. Yeah? Like this. In order for Carlos to actually perceive Gennaro's magical leap, because that's what it is. It is a magical leap. Yeah?
Yes.
He really is doing this. And it's going to be explained how he does it later on. Right? But it's incredible. The bafflement I experienced was as unique as everything else that was happening to me. My mind buckled under the strain. I felt utterly disoriented. Yes. So we have to understand capital T trust and attunement. And we have to go with things sometimes because of the greater sensibility, yeah, that we cannot perceive. No? It's fantastic. Don Juan stood up and made me cover the lower part of my abdomen with my hands and press my legs tightly against my body in a squat position. We sat in silence for a while, and then he said he was truly going to refrain from explaining anything to me, because only by acting can one become a sorcerer. Or a whoa, bless me, that came rather suddenly, sorry. Only by acting can one become a sorcerer. Now, we're not interested in becoming sorcerers, but sorcery is a stepping stone to more. So when we say sorcery here, let's just use a greater term. To become a spirit warrior, to become a person of knowledge, to become a seer, a perceiver is a much better term. To become free. Only by acting can we be free. It is acting.
Hmm.
Because without application, it's all meaningless. Right? That's why Way of Impeccability, that's like the mantra, the slogan of Way of Impeccability. Without application, it's all meaningless. Yeah.
Sorry.
Very,
Yes.
very,
Absolutely.
very, very key. Acting, acting, doing, 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 doing. He recommended I leave immediately. Otherwise, Don Gennaro would probably kill me in his effort to help me. Now, you are going to change directions and you'll break your chains. You are going to change directions and you'll break your chains. Very interesting. We're going to see this in a moment now. He said there was nothing to understand about his or Don Gennaro's actions, and that sorcerers were quite capable of performing extraordinary feats. Gennaro and I are acting from here, he said, and pointed to one of the centers of radiation in his diagram. And it is not the center of understanding. yet you know what it is. I wanted to say that I did not really know what he was talking about, but he did not give me time and stood up and signaled me to follow him. Now, let me pause here. Oh, it wasn't screen sharing here. It doesn't matter because this is a massive point. I wanted to say that I did not really know what he was talking about, but he did not give me time and stood up to signal me to follow him. Now, if we take Carlos with always that Don Juan says, well, you kind of you know what's going on, and then Carlos says, no, but I don't. To reconcile this contradiction, right? This reconciliation of this contradiction is very, very important, because when we come to something new, right? Oh, I don't understand. The moment you say I don't understand, in that very moment you kind of make that true. Yeah. Now, if you were to just add one little word onto that, and instead of saying I don't understand, say I don't understand yet.
Yep.
Beena, do you think this would
Yes.
make a very big difference to Carlos if and how many times has he said to Don Juan, but I don't understand? But the but too is a contrary thing. It's saying there's a we are on opposite sides of things. But if you had simply saying and he didn't even have to say to Don Juan, if he said to himself, I'm not understanding yet. In other words, by implication, you are telling your brain yourself you are in the process of understanding it. Furthermore, let's get sophisticated from a way of impeccability and a Moreness-Culture point of view. When you're in such circumstances, don't even say I'm understanding yet. Just say I'm in the process of figuring it out. Yes, I'm in the process now. We could say, okay, but this is beyond my mind. Okay. I am in the process of assimilating all of what I need in order to know this. Know, not understand. And let's separate know to understand, because we can understand and not know, and we can know and not understand. Yes,
Yes.
we can understand and know, which is moreness. We want to get to that point. Yes, because if we make a little bit of effort, we can transform, connect knowing to understanding. Yeah, it's easier to go from knowing to understanding than it is to go from understanding to knowing, but we can. To go from understanding to knowing needs application. Yes, needs doing, and that application is sometimes bringing it into your body, incorporating it, connecting to what is in your body. You might have the knowing sitting here on the tip of your elbow, or up here in the arm, or down there in your
Mm.
leg, in your knee, in your foot, somewhere. Doesn't matter. It may even be outside of the body, just in your energy body, right? So it may be in space around you, in your greater cocoon around you. Yeah. But that's the point, though. What I'm saying is, as a strategy, don't just default to
Mm.
saying, I don't know. Just let it be and assume that you do know. Don't even say that you don't understand. Forget the understanding, because sometimes we have to leap over understanding in times like this and saying, okay, let me assume that I know. And then you start feeling, thinking, you start shifting, you start doing things with your body and your other senses and your other shift, and like, oh, okay. A- And also, at some times, we might not get to knowing that we know, but we can trust that we know. And if you do that, say, I don't know how I know, I don't know what I know, but I trust that I know.
Mm.
And in that trust that I know, my knowing, I say, oh, I trust that I know. Am I being honest? Now I trust my honesty. And my honesty
Mm.
says, I trust that I know. And my honesty is not bothered. My honesty is not conflicted. Oh wow. I actually do know. Because my honesty says, yes, I do know. I have no idea how I know. I don't even know what exactly I know, but I know it. And that trust now becomes the self-proving fact via leveraging my self-honesty. Beena, I want to end here, but I want to end with you giving me um, a repeat back in your own words of what I said about understanding and knowing and self-trust and self-honesty and the whole complexity, the technique, in other words, for getting to know things that are outside of our normal stuff, getting to know things that are wild and different and new and unusual. In other words, this is part of capital R receptivity. It
Exactly.
is a technique, though. It's a technique for jumping over I don't understand. Yeah, and to not make that confusion, to not lock it in, to not entrench it, to essentially set it aside and kind of go around it, jump over it and come at it from the other side. And then, oh, okay, I understand now, right? And maybe we get understanding. Do I need the understanding? Not always. Is it nice to have? Yes. Yeah, we can get there, but it takes a bit of effort. But please give me a repeat back of this major point, this technique, in other words, right? It's a
Okay.
technique for when
Yes.
we're dealing with disorientation and confusion, right? That's a technique for
Yes. Okay.
avoiding those.
Okay. So for me, again, as you were saying, because it was a lot of detail, and I was totally immersed into that what was happening at that time, this moment with Carlos,
Mm,
as of course the kind of a sympathy for him also,
mm,
because I personally feel connected to that. When I was here, new, completely new, when people were talking, like first thing, as I shared many times, the first word I encountered was consciousness,
mm.
and I was literally pondering my head, like, what is this? I in my mind, it was like I must understand this, I must know this, and I was like continuously trying that. It was not clear, but it opens up a lot of door for me. So yes, I feel a bit connected. What you were saying about receptivity, and when we have this kind of confusion that something is completely beyond our usual understanding. For me, again, technique was to remember that when first time I learned something new, even that understanding about something which is coming as new right now,
Yeah,
like when he was saying that, okay, oh, it cannot be a rewind exactly in the same way, like the two leaves, and like, okay, oh,
yeah, yeah,
try to remember that when it happens, when we learn this idea that it can happen only one, that
yeah,
was also new at that time. That
yeah,
understanding, that
yeah,
awareness
yeah,
was also new, that oh, it
yeah.
can happen one time. But because we had no hesitation, we have no reluctance, we had no preconceived ideas about that, so we absorbed it, we accept it completely and fully, and then just lock it in as an ultimate truth. Oh yes,
Yeah,
okay, it cannot happen exactly.
yeah,
But when before this understanding, before this idea completely, this belief completely established in our system, we were open. We were open for newness. And we need to stay connected with that openness all the time.
yeah,
Like and perceive every idea as something that, oh, when the first time I learned that, like you were sharing a lot of experiences, like you when you were in desert, and when you first time you eat something, like it was a donkey meat, and all sort of things which were new, completely new, again, like completely different from, and also some huge. Like the first
yeah,
time when people saw the eclipse, they were saying like, oh my god, this is the most horrible thing, the world is going to end and all that. But
yeah,
no, the world doesn't end there. We have to stay connected with that same openness when we have when which we had before this idea. First thing for me, receptivity is about that, yes, all my understanding, all my beliefs, my experiences were also new first time, were also strange first time. So if they were strange and new first time, how they cannot be new and strange this time? Of
yeah,
course, the moreness idea is to not get locked in with already conceived and accepted ideas and beliefs.
yeah.
we lose that. And this is what is happening with people with, like, okay, the big fuss about the AI revolution. AI is going to, like, okay, completely just trouble your world, and everyone is going to be jobless and all these things. Again, as you always say, stay connected with your innate positivity. Stay connected with your innate goodness and the goodness of the world. Things can be good, things can be positive.
Right.
And of course,
Right.
whatever is coming can be
Right.
positive and
Right. So I want to get specifically to that technique of dealing with confusion and disorientation and trying to understand. And in other words, to what to do rather than saying, I don't understand.
yes. When you were saying about this, instead
Repeat that.
of saying that, yes, instead of saying that, okay, out loud to yourself and to others, that I don't understand, say, I don't understand yet. Right
Correct.
now,
Correct.
I am dealing with this, but I am open. Because when we say that, we create a new reality for ourselves. That, okay, yes, I'm unhooking from that. I'm not stuck. I am open. This word yet, like you always mention about, like, wow, what I'm doing right now, like, I'm losing the word. Anyway, so this saying that I don't know yet means that I'm in the process. And when we say that, again, in our bureaucrats, they always try to make it true. So they say, oh, something is going on, something is in process. We cannot shut down. We cannot have this thing that, okay, it's an ultimate thing and now it's done. We cannot understand this. No, it's a process going on. Okay. And then our whole system, our conscious, subconscious, our body and mind and everything start getting involved into that process of learning and growing just by adding that yet.
Correct. And then to go further about
Yes.
to say, okay, now what can I do to get more? To realize understanding is not all there is to it. There's also knowing, which goes beyond understanding. So then
Exactly.
to say, I trust that I will know. I trust that I can know. And in
Yes.
situations where, like when Don Juan says to Carlos, well, you already know. In situations where you feel like you might know, you can say to yourself, I trust that I do already know. And here's the
Yes.
key. The key to that statement is to then tap into your inner self-honesty and listen to your inner self-honesty. Is that actually true? Oh, wow. Wow. I didn't believe, I didn't think that I knew. I don't feel like I know. I don't think I know. But but my honesty tells me I actually do. That is an incredible, incredible,
Let's say
incredible
how.
technique.
How?
Because I'm saying
How
I
it is.
trust that I do know. And we can know things that we don't know we know. So the key to
Okay,
find that out is to say, I trust that I already know, and then listen to your self-honesty to see if that statement is true. I trust that I already know, and then I check the statement. Your self-honesty may come back and say, yeah, kind of, halfway, or no, you don't know, you haven't got a clue. See? So your self-honesty will let you know if you already know things that you don't know that you know. You say, I trust that I already know, and then you use
Okay.
your self-honesty to check that. Make sense, Beena?
Okay. For me, it's a bit of a shaky kind of a thing, because whenever it will connect to my self-honesty, my senses would tell that, oh, we don't have experience of this, we don't have any memory of those experience,
Right.
we don't have any way of finding this out, like figuring this out. So how can we say that? And then of course the self-honesty would suggest that, okay, no, we don't know. For me, it is to connect that my world, to connect with the idea that my world and the realities are not dependent on my senses.
Right,
They are
exactly.
above
So,
and
yeah,
beyond my
yeah,
senses.
yeah. All right. So key point here. When I'm saying no, this is capital K no, which
Okay.
is a knowing beyond experience, beyond having seen it or heard it or felt it or touched it or smelt it or tasted it or whatever, right? See,
Yes.
this is
Hmm.
capital K no. This is having the ability to use the knowledge.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's the key point. All right. So now let's think about this capital K knowing. Yeah. When
Hmm.
people get into like emergency situations and they just react. And then afterwards, someone said, well, how did you know to do that? I don't know. I just knew. I just reacted. I just did. See? See?
Yes.
And I have demonstrated this to people that 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 they know things that they don't know they know, right? Even in more like in an understanding way, in a more mind way, because they know it, but they never just put it all together, right? And it's not that hard to demonstrate, but I don't have the time for it now. But we've done this many times. And then they're
Oh,
like at the end,
yes.
yes, okay, yeah, actually, I did know that, but I didn't. And they don't always say it in that way. They don't always, they don't have the expression or the articulation. But then,
Just,
but then they
yeah.
will say, now that you kind of go through all the steps, I realized that I did actually know it, even though I didn't know I knew it before. Right?
Just
Sorry?
want to add something here
Yeah, yeah.
because we need to, personally, I feel, to extract moreness, we need to unhook from self-importance.
There you
Because
go.
I
There you go.
I am not able to figuring out in my via my conventional way for this particular incident or situation, then it can't be true. This can't be happened. Like
There
no, it
you
is
go. That's Carlos.
problem.
That is
Yes, the
Carlos.
problem is that we try to assume that
Yeah.
everything is like really going to
Brilliant,
suit
Beena.
me,
Brilliant.
and it has to qualify all my logical and reasoning and calculations
Yeah.
and everything. We have to unhook from the self importance that things can go beyond my usual
Exactly.
conventional logic and
Right.
understanding.
The
The usual
arrogance
the
of
logic.
self-importance.
Exactly, exactly. That's the problem. Because if something is not going under my calculation, that it means that it cannot happen. It can
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
It's been happening with, of course, other people's experience. We assume that if it is not 2 plus 2 4, then it cannot be like, okay, no, sorry, it is
Right.
illogical.
Right.
It is not.
Right.
But things go beyond that.
Right.
And then again, by doing so, that by getting into the self-importance, we actually limit ourselves big time. We assume
Yeah.
that we are giving so much value, but actually not. We assume that, oh, this is not come like, okay, I didn't see that, I didn't touch that, I didn't smell that, so it can't be true. But are you limited to those senses only? No, you are much more
Exactly.
than that. And
In
that's
other
the problem.
words, in
Yes,
other words, are you limited to your idea of
exactly.
how the world works and how you work?
View works also.
The world does not work the
Work.
way we
They
think it does.
assume it does.
You
Yes.
do not work the way
Work
you
the
think
way
you
we
do.
assume.
There's more.
Exactly.
That's the magic of moreness. That is the
Exactly.
magic of moreness. Once we start to connect to the idea of moreness, automatically, by implication, just the word moreness says it's outside of what I believed was available. Right? It's more. It's more than what I thought was available, possible, etc. Moreness is a transformative conception, and Moreness culture is putting this transformativeness into practice, into usability, right? To apply it, in other words. Is that incredible, Beena?
Absolutely.
Just this
Absolutely.
one concept of Moreness, transformative,
But
transformative.
actually, this one word brings a lot of worldview collapse because we have to get rid of
Yeah,
our self-importance. We have to get
correct,
rid of
correct,
arrogance. We have to
correct, correct,
actually open
correct,
ourselves for like other understanding
correct.
that okay, yes, okay, we have to
Yeah,
get rid of all our logical reasoning and things like that too.
yeah,
Because who has been like okay, who really designed this logic? Human, of course, a person like you.
yeah,
So can we say that this is the ultimate? This is
yeah,
so important. This is so huge. But this
yeah,
is not the final thing. There is
yeah.
much more in everything, and that this
Exactly.
is what I'm hearing. So yes,
Exactly. And you talk about self-importance and arrogance and confusion. And I was talking about moreness, and I don't know, somebody was commenting on this, And one person said, yeah, but moreness isn't a real word.
Because because I don't want to say more on that, but okay.
But I mean,
Yep.
the arrogance of it. I mean, not only
Exactly.
isn't that true, it's just not a word that's being used. They don't even understand language that you can have a word and then you can add a suffix to it. Happiness, beautifulness, yeah, well, moreness. It's
Yes.
also through me using it, it's now in the dictionary, right? So I was just the first one to make that particular connection. But even if I had made up some imaginary word, blah, blah, whatever, right, some crazy word, doesn't mean it cannot exist. It's a real word. It's real in my world. Now, if everybody starts to accept it, it becomes part of everybody's reality. But that's how language works. It's just by popularity, it's just by acceptance, right? Anyway,
Yes.
but their arrogance to discount the concept because it's not a real word. Does the concept go away because this is not a word that you aren't aware of having been used? It's new to you, but they want to deny it because it's so obvious that the ego said, "Oh, I should have known this." Right? And the ego
Exactly.
doesn't, now they have to discount it and say it's not a real word and make, hopefully it'll go away so that they don't have to feel stupid. When they encountered moreness, it made them feel stupid. Isn't that fascinating? But now they want to deny all of the magic and the value and the power of moreness simply because their ego, a little petty childish ego, is having a little tantrum. Oh, this is making me look stupid. Seriously? Ay, 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 ay. Come on, come on, come on, come
things
on,
can
come on.
things can things can be in our paradigm. Things can be out of our paradigm. Something we
Exactly.
choose, something we connect with, something we don't. Few things in life we don't connect because, of course, again, moreness also connected with appropriateness. Sometimes, yes, okay, I love so many things about the Buddhism. Okay, I do. I cannot
Yes.
say so
Lots of
many things, but
wonderful
few
things in
things.
Buddhism. Absolutely.
But not so like, okay, there are so many things which I don't understand at all, which I don't feel connected to. It doesn't make any sense to me. It feels so burdensome, like really hectic, and like really a useless effort. Again, this is my idea, not necessarily the reality of it. So I don't connect with that. We have this amazing power of pick and choose. That's why we all have difference. We all are different, and that's why we celebrate differences. This is how we're making this world beautiful, more and moreness on top of moreness, because we all are
Exactly.
different and we have to stay different. It's like really to each other. We don't need to exactly uniform everything. If Don Juan is sharing something about, this is something he is sharing right now. But the ultimate intent can be universe, like really a universal intent that, okay, yes, sharing about moreness. Mediums can vary. I can connect with that. I can choose it. I cannot choose it. It's totally up to me, my choice, my independence, my freedom to choose. But again, if we all will get into the same thing, then the world will not be as beautiful and as more as it is right now, and it can be. So for me, pick making and having this ability and the freedom of choice is a big, huge deal.
It's huge. It's huge. It's huge,
and
huge,
still
huge, huge,
and
huge,
still
huge.
stay
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah.
I am different to Carlos. I am different to Don Gennaro. I am completely different to Don Juan, but I can still enjoy their moreness. I can still appreciate their moreness without
Absolutely.
without actually applying all these ideas. I can pick and choose, and I can do that.
Exactly. I want to make one last PowerPoint to wrap this all together.
Oh
We
yes.
really, really, really need to make the effort to get out of the mentality of opposites, which
Hmm.
is the mentality of opposites. If something's not black, it must be white. If it's not white, it must be black. It insists that things are either or. In other words, if I'm confident, like and Beena and I, we speak with confidence about what we do, right? That means in the mentality of opposites that you must kind of also be a bit arrogant. Yeah. Why? Because you can't be confident and at the same time be aware that you don't know things, because those are two opposite, right? If you're confident, that means you are thinking that you know stuff. You can't be confident and also know that you don't know things. Of course you can. They can easily coexist. We speak confidently because we've made an effort to know what we're talking about, to explore it, to investigate it, right? As much as we can. But part of Moreness culture is to know that there's always more. So no matter how confidently we speak about it, we are always open to more. Always. Right? So that doesn't mean that we have any arrogance whatsoever. No, none whatsoever. And if something comes along that updates what we do, we change it, we update, we just do it. It's so organic, it's so fluid, you won't even notice it. We'll just change, we update, and we grow, and we add them more, right? Very, very powerful. But this has been open. And we all of what Beena and I know, it's only as good as it lasts.
Of
Right, Beena?
course, absolutely, absolutely.
If something comes along and says, nope, there's more, there's a change, it's going to drop. Joseph joined
Yes.
us. Very good, very good. And also, Satgur Mukkuar. Yeah. So, I'm not sure your comment there. You said erring poly extremism. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. If you could elaborate on that. So Joseph says, sorry, Joseph, I was looking earlier for you and then I didn't see you. But all right, we'll read Joseph's comments here. What you're talking about is a base understanding of any traditional Native American. The phrase you like, traditional Native people would think, duh, and get at it. It is perhaps hard for non-natives to understand. It's not just a Native American perception, Joseph. It's all around the world. Yes, like in Buddhism, as Beena was saying, it's a very big deal. Not just in Buddhism, but in Vedic culture, Vedic tradition. All cultures
Every culture,
have
yes.
have a part of them. Even Western culture, in all its nonsense and intellectualism and all this, even there is the concept of direct knowing, knowing without words and all this, right? Experience. They're all connected. So if you just investigate the terminology and you go past the current cultural paradigms, and you start to see, oh, this is already there, right? So it's not only this. Yes, it is. You are speaking from the Native American perspective, but be careful of assuming because it's in your reality. This is a very clear and obvious thing that it's only in your particular cultural reality. You know, for me, I have really made a great effort to look at things globally, yes, and to go outside of culture, and it's been very useful and beneficial to understand that these things coexist all around the world, and it's just a matter of terminology, right? For the most part. So Don Joseph says to experience an anomaly for a native person is to immediately go to is the anomaly an omen? And if so, what do I do about it? Yes, yes. Omens is a thing that, I mean, omens go all the way back. Uh, all cultures, once again, look at the Greeks. Yeah, I mean, Greek culture, which is so influential in Western civilization and to some extent is connected to Eastern as well, because of Alexander, and Eastern connected to the West via Alexander as well, cross-pollination, right? And then later with Marco Polo and Chinese culture also, there's a lot of cross influence just by a lot of those trade routes they went through Bethlehem. By the way, just it was a little bit of a trading hub on that trade routes to the east. So just as a by the by. So again, omens is a very big part of it. Again, for me, I've taken omens a little further to break out of the assumptions that cause omens to be problematical. They are incredibly useful, but if you start to insist that the omens always mean the same thing and that there is a specific meaning to omens, then they lose. And that's why they fell out of favor, because people started to try and insist that their worldview applies to omens in general. When you have a bit more flexibility and realize, oh, yeah, sometimes there's overlap, but sometimes not. Sometimes the same thing can mean different things. Then it all opens up. And that's why I use the term anomalies rather than omens, right? Because omens are connected to an understanding that something happens and there's a specific meaning to it. And in reality, if you just study and observe this, you'll see that that actually does not apply, right? The same thing happens, and you can ask people who perceive an anomaly or what is an omen, and if you really get into it with them, what did it mean to you? And then they all come up with something slightly different, right? It's like people's understanding of the word God. They think, I've tested this many times. They believe that their understanding is the same as everybody else's in the community. But when you really get into it with them, not at all. It's quite fascinating. Quite fascinating. Yeah. To a traditional native person, the thing they don't understand is why white people think and act like they know it all when they clearly don't. This is, again, it's not something that's related to white people. It's all around the world. You'll see it in Chinese, you'll see it in India, you'll see it in Australia, or Aborigine,
Everywhere.
Africa, you'll see it everywhere. Yeah. It is simply that in Western culture, with a superiority culture, they've gotten a little bit locked into this. I've seen it in Native American people too, by the way. Maybe not in your particular community, but I've seen it in people from every walk in life. It is arrogance, it is self-importance. Yeah, in Western culture, there's a bit of an extra premium on it, at least the culture that we see on the surface. Yeah, if you look a little bit deeper, you'll see there are lots of people who don't subscribe to this, but they've gotten prominence to push this. Yes, and they don't want to look stupid because then so they pretend they know because they don't want to look stupid because there's negative consequences to being perceived as stupid or ignorant. So it's a sad reality. It's not that they're doing it necessarily because they actually truly believe this. Of course, the BMNs and the narcissists, they may get caught up in their lies, but they do it as a self-survival thing. By the way, in Moreness-Culture, you'll never hear me using this term like white people. I never like saying black people, even though they call themselves that. You know, to me, people are people. And when you break down and you take these categories out, white, black, native, in nationalities, French, German, you go to a French farmer and ask him, show me around your farm. Yeah. And then they'll get to where they're growing the crops. The French farmer, the Indian farmer, the German farmer, the Native American farmer, the African farmer, they all do exactly the same thing. They put their hand in the soil and they'll rub it in the hand and it will drizzle out like that. Say, man, look at this earth. When they have good soil, look how rich it is. They do the same thing every time. You go to people who like to help and cure, medical people, right? They all act in the same way. They all want to cure and help and disease. Same thing. People are people all over the world. This idea that there's white people and black people and purple people and yellow people, they people. In the end, they all people. Yeah. They all have the same things. They all want joy. They all want happiness. They all have fear. They all feel pain. When you start to see the similarities instead of the ridiculous artificial differences, any cultural issue is an artificiality from what people are. And when you look at the similarities, you'll see the same people in different cultures that are exactly the same. I've known people, right? For instance, I've known people who aren't genetically, if there is such a thing anymore, Native American, but they subscribe to Native American ideals. They lived according to it. And they might not even have used the term, they might not even have been aware of Native American people, but they were connected to the earth, they were connected to the land, they respected nature. And when they killed something, they treated it with respect and apologized for doing all of those things. And they had no inkling of Native American culture, yet they lived it. And the way they were was contrary to the general surrounding culture that they were in. Yeah. And I've seen people behave like samurai who all right, they knew about samurai, but they'd never been to Japan. But they were so into that culture. I've spoken to many Japanese people who didn't know nearly as much about it. They just kind of more or less know, yeah, samurai and our history. But, it's like knights in our history, in Western history. Yeah. You talk about a knight. How many people really know what was involved, the details of it? Very few, some idea, they're movie ideas. So when we look at this is what Moreness is. Moreness culture is saying, let's look at the Moreness, the bigger picture, and then you start to get out of these narrow definitions, which simply limit our worldview. Yeah, and we get into division, and really, what is it all about? Why not commune with everybody? There are stupid people in every culture. There are stupid people, ignorant people, people who are behaving poorly. There are criminals in every culture. I don't care how good your culture is, I'll find you criminals in your culture. So, see, when you look at it from this point of view, you start to realize, yeah, culture is very limited. Let's go beyond that. Let's go beyond that. Joseph goes on to say, because we intuit the mystery, and because of that, we know much of the mystery is unknowable. Yes, yes. And anybody who's interested in Moreness and even in Western culture, there's a great history of mysticism and spirituality in Western culture. It's been a bit suppressed, and people aren't aware of it because of the church and the power of the church. They made a lot of effort, and there was a long period in history where if you were interested in Moreness, you had to keep it to yourself, not just in yeah, because well, all cultures have this to a certain extent. But if you started to push against the status quo, you could get burnt at the stake as a heretic, put in prison, killed. This is not that uncommon in cultures if you go back in time, right? They really don't like to push against the boundaries and traditions, because now you start challenging the status quo, you start challenging what people know, and then self-importance comes in, and people get insecure and they get uncomfortable, and they think it's dangerous and blah and blah and blah. So people who were pushing the edges, they always had a very hard time. Yeah. Uh,
Yes.
Any traditional Native American can give many examples from life that are not rational and defy rational explanations. Again, it's not a Native American thing, Joseph. All cultures have this. All cultures have this. Yeah. I mean, it's religions are based on this, and superstitions. They all come from this, where people are trying to make sense of things. They know there's stuff that defy rational and logic, right? It's just part of it. So Sil can talk about these things as concepts, but to really understand it and real body way, it takes an extraordinary events, or say plant medicine. No, it does not, Joseph. Sorry. This is a belief that you stick to. And I have multiple proofs to the contrary. Absolutely not, Joseph. It's a belief, but it's a belief only. It's not a reality. Reality contradicts this belief of yours, Joseph. No, you can get to these things, these concepts, and understand and know without plant medicine. Don't have to have it. I mean, it's just dreams, for heaven's sake. It's just one way. Any sort of extreme circumstance, yeah, hunger, for instance, physical illness, stress. These things can occur randomly for no reason whatsoever. I personally have experienced that. So has Beena. Yeah. They
Yes.
can also come about as an act of will and intent. And again, I have experienced this. So, no, those ways may be easier, maybe. They may be
Oh,
more
yes. Oh,
accessible, but
yes.
not the
It's a
only way.
leverage. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be a
Just
leverage.
because it's an easier way to do it, Joseph, it doesn't mean it's the only way. Yeah. And there's a price to pay for easy. Yeah. So be aware. Price. Yeah. Okay. After using power plants, there's no way he could be as stupid or clueless as he acts. This is Carlos. I think Carlos exaggerates his ignorance sometimes as he plays the literary version of the Sacred Fool. Yes, absolutely. But I think Carlos really was stuck in his foolishness. But it's the universe who is using Carlos. Because
Okay.
if Carlos had learned quicker, sorry, Bina, let me just finish this point real quick. If Carlos had learned quicker and faster, we wouldn't get all the details that we get. So Carlos is massively valuable. Yeah, go ahead, Bina. Yeah.
No, I was just saying that okay, I need to go because it's getting late for me.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
but discussion is really profound, and again, it's about for us again, it's a freedom to choose, and also that we don't need to sticking to one way of doing it is limiting us ourselves, and negating the moreness. We
Yeah.
can have moreness, of course, with other things also. Okay, so if you want to please continue,
Yeah,
and then we
yeah, yeah. All right. So Satguru says, flush it out of mind and remain steady. Don't wander away. Yes, yes, yes.
can, yes.
And Joseph says that's why Don Juan always tells him indulges and just acts ignorant. Yes, but it's to our benefit. So I give Carlos a lot of hard time, but I also appreciate Carlos in the context of the entire series and as part of attunement. Carlos is a magical gift to us. If Carlos wasn't this incredible stuck fool, we wouldn't get all of the details that we're getting. Very, very wonderful. So Joseph says non-dualism. Yes, I think that was in my mentality of opposites points. Soul can definitely be arrogant. Beena is not yet arrogant. That's quite an indictment of Beena to assume that she will be arrogant. And Joseph, just as a point of amusement, isn't that a very arrogant statement to make? All right. What you confuse as arrogance is adamance. If there is one thing I cannot be, it is actually arrogant. What is arrogant? Arrogant is to say, this is so because I am saying so. That's actually what arrogance is. Everything I say is substantiated, Joseph. If you want to know why I say it, I'm not saying it because I'm saying it and therefore I believe it has value. I'm saying it because there's depth behind it. I don't always have the time to explain all of the depth. Nothing, not one single thing I ever say is an unfounded opinion. And if it is, it's a speculation. I will say so. I'm guessing, I'm speculating, I'm anticipating, I'm imagining. I will always qualify it. Other than that, what I say has a basis behind it. I may be only sharing the tip of the iceberg, but there's the iceberg underneath it. Always. Every single thing I say. I cannot be arrogant, Joseph. I cannot. It's against my entire nature because I understand what arrogance actually is. It is the belief that something is right simply because you are saying so. How can that possibly be so? It makes no sense at all. It's completely against every point of sensibility and rationality and just anything. It's just idiocy, right? So don't confuse my confidence in my expertise with arrogance. When I talk about stuff, I talk about what I really know about. And I can substantiate every single thing I can substantiate. I'm not saying just opinions sucked out of the air. Never, never, ever, ever. I mean, if you want me to go back and say why exactly, I'll be happy to. I don't always have the time to lay out all of that. I mean, you forget, Joseph, you forget where I come from, how my history is. I didn't come to Don Juan and then start to, oh, I discovered something. Don Juan came afterwards, afterwards after I had created my own psychology, my own philosophy, and applied it, lived it daily, daily, daily. And then after that, I I made that my great reading project was to read all of the great books and the classics and the books of knowledge and wisdom and study all the different religions and philosophies and everything all around the world. Yeah, came after I had already put my own stuff together. Then at the tail end of that came Don Juan. So I come at things from a very, very different perspective. I'm not coming at things idly. I've done an incredible amount of work, work. Every single day, every single minute, every single second of my life since I'm 10 years old. I've been working on the stuff. Not coming that stuff idly, Joseph. So just because I'm speaking with confidence, and I would never speak about anything if I did not know what I'm talking about. Don't confuse that for arrogance. Don't confuse that for arrogance. I'll back up every single thing I say. Arrogance cannot be backed up. If you're arrogant, you can't back it up. Yeah. I'll back up every single thing I say. It doesn't make me arrogant. It makes me confident, makes me an expert in what I'm saying. Yes, but not arrogant. Please don't confuse the two, Joseph. Please don't confuse the two. If you don't understand what I'm saying or why I'm saying it, if you don't want and you want to know what's behind it, ask me. Say, so you're saying this, but based on what? Yeah. I will always give you the based on what. Always. Always. Yeah. I know a lot of things that I cannot explain always. I don't talk about that stuff. I don't talk about stuff that I know that I can't extrapolate on, I can't elucidate on. I have practiced elucidation all my life. That's what I am. I'm an elucidator, not a philosopher or psychologist or whatever. I'm an elucidator, but I'm also an applier. I live all this stuff, Joseph. I'm not talking just out of theory or intellectual stuff. I live it. I live it, live it, live it, live it, live it. Yeah. So please don't. I mean, I don't have an ego issue with being called arrogant. I know a lot of people perceive me as arrogant, like you do, but or that I can be, but but this is a misperception. Don't confuse expertise with arrogance. If I didn't ever back up what I said, you could call me arrogant. But I don't just say the things that I say are true because I'm saying it. That's arrogant. I'm saying they're true because of this, and this, and this. They're true because of my experience. They're true because at least they have value. I don't even think of things as true or not true. I think of them as valuable. I don't care whether things are true or not true. It's value. They have value because of this. They have value because I've personally experienced the value. I've experienced the value in others. And mostly the value sometimes, well, I found it valuable. I'm not insisting that it's valuable to you. Never, ever, ever. Right. And again, arrogance would insist that so. I never say this, right? And again, I'm saying points out of a moreness I've applied all my own life. Joseph, where I'm coming from is in such an extension of what normally is. It's hard to conceive. And the same conception between expertise and kind of normalness. You can take it in any other endeavor. And I mentioned this. Well, like playing golf, for instance. I'm an expert golfer. Yes, almost a scratch golfer, which puts me in 0.05% of people worldwide, golfers worldwide. And golf is the most played sport. It's the most played sport, right? So the database for people to compare to is pretty high. So, but that's because I made the effort. That's all. I didn't have any natural talent to it. I just worked at it. I made an effort. I had an intent to do so. Yeah? And I did so for many reasons. One of them was to prove to myself that I'm not arrogant. I believe, based on everything else in my life, that I can do things that are extraordinary. And I proved it with playing golf to get to that level. And I did it late in life. I didn't do it as a teenager. I played some in my life, but I got to that level. I had to relearn golf, essentially. I did it in my mid-40s, in about 3 years' time. Yeah? Simply through applying all of what I'm talking about, applying Way-Of-Impeccability, applying Moreness-Culture. Yeah? So I'm saying it's a proof that I'm not just BSing. I can do things. But likewise, when we look at the greaterness of things in the bigger picture, yeah, when we understand, when you on that levels of true professionals, the difference between them and non-professionals is so vast that most can't even comprehend it. And a good example of this, I've mentioned this before, go and look up amateurs or ordinary people thinking they can fight with professionals. This happens all the time. It is the most ludicrous, mind-blowing thing. There's one thing to assume you can play golf with a professional. People know how golf, you got to score, you can know, right? Or any other thing, maybe when there isn't score, right? Well, I play tennis pretty good, and you think you can compete with a professional. Well, go and play once, and you're going to see the difference. You never get that opportunity. So a lot of people believe they can, but particularly with guys and fighting, they have this absurd idea that they think they can fight, and they actually go and challenge the professional. It's fascinating, right? They'll walk into a gym and they challenge the master to a fight. They don't challenge the students. They don't find out how good they really are. They just assume. This is arrogance in place, right? Where they assume they can. And of course, they get beaten up like crazy. It's the most ridiculous thing. And it's very amusing to watch, actually, too, in a peculiar way. It's also very sad, right, to see. But you see the realization, when they actually get hit. And this is what fascinates me. Because in other things, there's not a real physical consequence to that arrogance. But when it comes to fighting, there is. Yeah. But the belief, And that's what I was talking about the other idea. We have a belief, right? And belief does not really sometimes connect to actuality. So we have believed value and actual value. For me, I'm all about the actual value. Arrogance is about believed value. Yeah. That's why when you say, yes, I can be arrogant, please think about it very carefully. Listen to everything that I say, and also be aware that much what I say is outside of your worldview. The same way as what Don Juan and Don Gennaro are saying things to Carlos that's outside of his worldview. You assume your worldview is complete, Joseph. You keep on saying Native American this, Native American, and I keep telling you it also exists in other cultures, but you just ignore that. You don't update. Yeah. So be aware, Joseph, that much of what I'm sharing is outside of your particular worldview as an individual, not cultural worldview, as an individual. Yeah. You do realize this because you've mentioned it on times. Yeah. But just because some of the things are so beyond, don't assume that it's coming out of arrogance. No, it's just new to you. It's just different, right? I never say anything because I think say it as true because I'm saying it. This is impossible for me to do, and that's what arrogance is. Yeah, nothing I say is unsubstantiated. And beside which, I'm not saying ever something is so. I'm saying it's so for me. I'm sharing how I see things, and that is completely contrary to arrogance. If you really listen to me carefully and stop assuming how I'm coming, because that's how you perceive me. You have definitions, ideas, and you put me into those boxes. I'm this, I'm that, and no, I'm not anything that you've ever experienced before. There's no one that you've ever known who's like me, Joseph. Sorry. We're all individuals, but some of us are a little more individual than others. Why? Because I've made an effort all of my life to not be and to go and to pursue moreness. And so I've extended this. Yeah. Same way as Don Gennaro and Don Juan. They're not like anybody we know. We don't know anybody like them. They're completely outside of our knowing. I'm not like Don Gennaro and Don Juan. I'm different, but in the same way that they are radically different, so am I. I'm very radically different. I've lived a different life completely. I've lived a life according to attunement, not according to my ideas or my logic or following a goal or plan. Whatever attunement brought me, I followed that. To live according to what comes from outside of me. I live according to data information of what's outside of me, not inside. If I was arrogant, or can be, even just you said, yeah, I can definitely be arrogant. If you have the capability of arrogance, you are not going to live according to things outside of you. You're going to take what comes from inside of you as the sensibility. I did things which are completely illogical, irrational, insensible, made no sense whatsoever, and I did them because of attunement. Not because of I think it. I thought they were completely stupid or wrong or crazy. But my greater sensibility said, no, but it's attunement. I'm trusting attunement. But in my ordinary brain, made no sense whatsoever. So yeah, just be careful of this, Joseph. Just be careful of this. Shift a little bit to the worldview. Assume, have some capital T trust and receptivity. We've talked about this many, many times. Assume when you don't understand that there's a sensibility, and then see if you can figure it out. Yeah. You'll be amazed when you shift the understanding to a default to assume that there's a sensibility first, and then reverse engineer from sensible to where you're at. Oh my God, I didn't realize this. But when you go by what you know and something is outside of your knowing, and you're trying to relate it according to how you know, it's not going to seem sensible because by default it's outside of what you know, therefore not sensible, right? So much of what I'm saying is like that. Much of what I'm saying is like that. Right? Much of what I share is exactly in the same way conceptually as what Don Juan and Don Gennaro are sharing to Carlos. They're doing it in a very physical, very visceral way. I don't have the means available to me, so I have to find other ways. But much of what I'm doing conceptually is exactly the same. It's outside of the worldview, outside of the worldview. If you're not receptive, you're never going to connect to it. And then you're going to start fitting it into your worldview. Look how Carlos tries to fit Don Juan into his worldview. Don Juan is always trying to trick him. Don Juan is tricky. In other words, Don Juan is deceitful and underhanded. Really? See? So again, when you don't understand, we find descriptions like this thing with that I can be arrogant, and to say Beena is not yet arrogant, that's assuming Beena is on the path to arrogance. That's a horrible thing. Sorry, Joseph. I don't think that's a very nice thing to assume and say. If there's no evidence, why would you assume she's going there? Are there any indications that show this? No, none whatsoever. Beena will never ever be arrogant. She cannot. She cannot. It's not possible. Because Beena has no possibility of thinking something could be true because she says so. It's the most ridiculous idea. Cannot be. We can be confident, yes. Confidence and arrogance, not the same thing. And again, like I was saying earlier, all of what we say can change. If tomorrow something comes along and everything I know is untrue, I say, okay, it's untrue, and I shift and change. It's happened before many times. I do it deliberately sometimes. Don't know. Don't know. Don't know. But thank you for the comment. I love it because it led to a great big sharing of stuff that's very important. It's very important. And again, too, if we listen very carefully, capital H, hearing, yeah, many times we say things that are actually meant for ourselves. I try to listen to myself very carefully in that same way. It's the most incredible thing. It's like our subconscious stuff comes out and we're saying it to others, but actually it's meant for us because we don't want to update internally. And our subconscious is trying to get through to us. And if only they would hear us. So when we actually listen to our own words and start applying to ourselves, like, wow, 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 wow. Very magical stuff. Very cool, Joseph. Very cool, very cool. That's why I love it. I love it. You always bring more. You always bring more. Very cool. And Sadhguru, I'm thrilled that you're here, man. I'm thrilled you're here. Yes, very wonderful. And that you commented. I love it. I love it. Very, very cool. Much, much, much appreciated. All right. On that note, oh, I will end it. I went a little longer than I meant to, but as stuff comes, attunement, just attunement. Joseph, I respond to you. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I spent the better part of an hour responding to your comment. Why? Not because it's a triggering comment, not because it upsets or bothers me. No, because of attunement. It's bringing, and there's this, you touch the point that's the tip of an iceberg. So I share the whole iceberg with you. That's how my life is. There's moreness on top of moreness on top of moreness. So my excessive sharing, it's not excessive. It's just I have a lot to share. And I'm being courteous. I'm being polite to share all of it. Yeah. It's not because I got to be in my bonnet. It's because I'm thorough. And thoroughness is part of my impeccability. And also I'm disciplined and I'm diligent and I'm scrupulous. How can I share partially when I know that thinking things through to the end is so critical? Having multiple perspectives is so critical. I can't just share part of it. Then I'm just giving, I'm not giving enough. And then if you just only listen to that, it's kind of nonsense. You have to have all of it. So when I share thoroughly like this is a part of my impeccability, my generosity, my kindness, my politeness, my courtesy. Yes, I'm doing this because otherwise it's a waste of time. Then I might as well just say nothing. So just understand it in the context that it's given. What I'm doing is preposterous. Most people aren't going to make an effort for somebody else when there's nothing in it for them. Most people are not going to make a sustained, deliberate, extensive effort when there's nothing in it for them. I've practiced this all my life to do this specifically as a skill. Yeah. Acting without rewards, acting without agenda. It is absolutely critical to living in attunement. Yeah. But again, if you have a confirmation bias, we have to be very careful. If you have an idea, somebody is something, you're going to find things to prove that idea. Shift the conception, yeah, and say, oh, maybe Syl is trying to do things from a monist point of view, and then the confirmation bias will figure that out. Maybe Syl is sharing things that are outside of usual understanding. And you're going to start seeing that, right? So all goes into that core assumption, right? The core definition that fuels the confirmation bias. I have a lot of material where I talk about positive confirmation bias, how we can use it to our benefit. Yes. and not to fall into the traps of negative confirmation bias, but use it where we are finding positive, but also not living in a bubble. Which is why you asked the other day, why narcissism? I don't know why you're focused on narcissism, but go beyond narcissism. It's more superiority culture is important. I don't have any obsession with it. It is simply to avoid falling into a bubble. I think Beena came back and joined us, or somebody's joining. Somebody, I heard the ding dong, but I can't see who it is. Who joined? Oh, it is Beena. It's Beena. She just hasn't connected to the audio yet. So yeah, I was just still explaining, Beena. I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're back. I don't know if you can hear me yet. Can you hear me? So yeah,
Yes.
I was
Yes,
just
I can.
explaining about moreness, and about, well, Joseph made a comment and I was elaborating, but I was explaining about going sharing extensively, making an extensive effort without any reward, and how this is. I do this on a regular basis, and so do you, because I've trained myself to do so. It's part of, well, it's part of Nobelia culture, which is it's a focused, it's a specialization of Moreness culture. And that's if you have that predilection going that way. And that happens to be mine. I go in that direction. So I do things that I can make a great effort for absolutely no reward whatsoever. Right, Beena?
Yes. Yes.
I was talking about arrogance because Joseph brought this point up. And I was
Oh,
saying, I
yes.
thought about arrogance when I was a kid. I really, like I did about many things, because we hear terms, but we don't really know what they mean. We use them. But what does it actually mean? I always want to go to the actually. So to me, arrogance, when you boil it down, it is somebody who's saying, this is true because I say so. Not because it actually is, but because I say so. Because I say so, that makes it true. That's, to me, the definition of arrogance. And uh, I don't think this is something that's possible for you or for me. This
Mhm.
goes against every single thing that we are, right? To say, oh, it's true because I say so. Everything we say, and we don't even get locked into truth. We don't care about true or untrue. We care about value and usefulness. I can
Yes.
get, we do specifically get value out of things that we know are not true. Yeah,
Oh,
get value
yes.
out of
Oh,
it.
yes.
Like for instance, I use this example. It's in the Ask Biella book. I believe I buy a lottery ticket, and I believe I'm going to win. I know
Hmm.
it's not likely true. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
convinced I'm going to win. Until the lottery is drawn, I love this idea. I'm going to win. I'm going to win. I've already won. This is my winning ticket, and I get great joy out of it.
Yes.
Okay, when I don't win, then I go buy another ticket and I start the process all over again. I know it's not true, but yet because it's fun. Yeah. A lot of things I know aren't true that make me valuable, right? We can get a lot of value out of things if we have that sensibility. Now, of course, I'm not delusional either. I'm doing it deliberately. Again, I'm using this as an example of exotic psychology. A lot of what I share is exotic psychology. And I use the word exotic because it's really moreness psychology, because it's going beyond what we normally think. It sounds crazy, but when you think about, oh, wow, okay, but it's outside of what we know. A lot of things like that. So, anyway, so truth and untruth doesn't matter for us, which is, again, how can we be arrogant? Everything we say is up for debate. It's up for question. If somebody comes and says, well, but then we'll change. And if they have some legitimate way to show and demonstrate. So to us, it's the demonstration of value that's important, right? So what
Oh,
we are
yes.
sharing is what's valuable and useful to us in our experience. And we're sharing. We're not telling, we're sharing. Sharing. And when I share points of like knowledge, points of knowledge, like when I say about cultures, I can substantiate that. I'm not just saying so because it's my opinion that, well, this is found in all cultures. I have extensive experience of it, both personally, having lived in different cultures, and also from all my reading. I can point you to it. So, this again to have this idea for us, we are so flexible and fluid in our knowing. This arrogance becomes something that's not possible.
Oh,
We
yes.
always
Oh,
up there.
yes.
But again, I was making the point earlier. I was saying, don't confuse confidence and expertise with arrogance. No.
Oh, this is very very interesting because
Yeah.
someone was asking me about like, okay, oh, yes, I know that. Okay, the situation can shake your confidence, and I said no, it's not a confidence issue for me. because I don't have any problem. But also I cannot flaunt this slackness or this flaw or whatever it is. So there's a fine balance between that. We have to
Oh
be
yeah.
very
Oh
careful
yeah.
about
Oh yeah.
this.
Oh yeah.
Confidence doesn't mean that okay, I'm just going to be wild, that okay, and I yes to
Yeah.
feel arrogant about my flaws or my lack of awareness about
Yeah.
anything. Like,
Yeah.
oh yes,
Yeah.
okay, this is because I'm unaware and I'm going to just stay that. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
this cannot
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
counted under, it cannot go under the umbrella of
Yeah.
confidence. Anyway,
Further.
Sat Gurmukh Kaur. This is the pronunciation of that name. Yes, Sat
Ah,
Gurmukh Kaur. It's a beautiful name, Gurmukh Kaur.
Sadhguru
Okay,
Mukkar. Yeah.
Kaur,
Yeah.
yes, Kaur. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
Sat.
Yeah.
Sat means it's true, and Sat
Ah.
Kaur. Yes, Gur is like okay. I assume that it is for Guru. It is derived from Guru. So like okay,
Oh.
such true, uh, divine teacher, and Mukh is like face, and
Oh.
Kaur is mostly I have seen it is used for female name. So I'm not sure in
Wow.
my limited knowledge, but I
Wow.
like this
Wow.
name,
Wow.
Satgur Mukh Kaur. It's a beautiful name, and they're
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
earning poly extremism, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. But he had another comment. Flush it out to mind, remains steady. Don't wander away. Yeah. We love the comments. I want to say also,
I
in
think
what
it's
you
a
were
verse.
saying.
It's a
Yeah.
translation of a
Yeah.
verse from Kabir or someone else.
Oh,
Flesh it
could be.
out, your
Could be.
mind, remain steady,
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
wander away. Yes.
I want to make a quick point. Just
Yes.
for Joseph also. Joseph, all my life, humility and modesty were prime to me. They dominated my being. I made an extraordinary effort to be humble and modest, to live it, to be it. Yes. And doing the lives is an activity in one of the reasons for doing it, many, many reasons. One of them, and for Beena also, is to balance out this excessive modesty. Now, when I went into modesty and humility, I knew I was being excessive, but I said I would rather err on the side of too much modesty than too little. Right. So I don't know where the line is, so I went way over to be sure I've crossed the line. However, being excessively modest and excessively humble can have negative consequences, right? Like in anything, excess breeds excess. So we have to be very careful of excessiveness. So part of that is in communication. I have a lot of things to share. They're valuable to me, and hopefully they're valuable to somebody else. Likely they are, because human beings, that's how human being stuff is. If something is valuable to one person, it's likely valuable to somebody else. I mean, this is how all writing works. And if you understand writing, people say, yeah, but what do I know? Hey, if you like it, likely there's going to be somebody else in the world to like it. And then people write what they like in their little bubble niche, and somebody else likes it. Many other people like it. This is how writing works. People finding people who like their particular niche. And likewise, I share because I'm hoping to find people who like my niche. I found one. Yes, Joseph, I would assume there's some overlap. You like some of what I say. So, right, that's partially so, right? And hopefully more like Beena. Yeah. But my point is though, if I'm sharing what's valuable to me, and I were to do so with my modesty and my humility, which I practiced all my life and is still in me, yes, I would not be able to do a life, and it would be pointless, and we wouldn't have these wonderful conversations. The modesty will prevent me from doing it, so I have to go against my modesty in order to do the life. Yeah? And I do so deliberately. It's one of the reasons for doing this. Yeah, otherwise, yeah. I do a lot of things which personally, individually, my inner predilection saying I'm not particularly interested. Yeah. And this doing the lives, personally, not particularly interested. I do it because of attunement. It's a different thing. Yeah. But personally, if it's up to my personal individual choices, I would not do this. Does not interest me, does not appeal to me personally. Very interesting. Beena, any comments?
No, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. the whole discussion about this, because it brings always, it's not only reminders but also it brings more. And having repetition is a big huge deal, because it gives you more clarity, more appropriate focus and attention, which is the most profound gesture, and of course the most profound benefit you can give it to yourself, that okay, yes, now I know what I really really want in my life. So this is something, yes. Anyone, okay, thank you so much. Anyway, thank you so much, Sil.
Before we wrap it up, Beena, I want to make one more comment.
Okay.
If we encounter what we believe to be arrogant, what I do is I say, based on what? Based on what? Just ask that question. Now, most people, when you ask them that question, and they are, well, not necessarily being arrogant, but opinionated, unsubstantiated, of course, they can't say based on what, right? And then they get a bit put out, and they get upset and that. And so I don't use it that often, because people can't handle, in terms of ego and all that. So I just go elsewhere. However, for me and for Beena, we absolutely invite, with every ounce of our being, we invite this question. Because especially right, when all the stuff we're sharing, if you say based on what, there's a lot to it. All of it lies on way of impeccability, capital H hearing, understanding of superiority paradigm psychology, etc., etc. We've made inordinate efforts to build, apply, learn, know, use what we are talking about. We are talking about this sort of topness of this massive iceberg that we are. We're just talking about the little tip, but there's a lot underneath it. If you ask based on what, you're going to hear based on what. Yeah, like now we're talking about Carlos. We're not always talking about way of impeccability. I can use the term way of impeccability, but if you want to know what way of impeccability about is, you have to come and do the program. It's going to take a minimum of 4 months, likely a year. See? So we're talking about stuff that is a lot to it, but we're just talking about it. You want to know about it, based on what, have to come and do it. Yeah, and we've done this. So you can get an idea of it, but we can't share all of what we do. I mean, we try to, yes, and we're doing things over a long period of time, but you have to take it over the long period of time. At the end of all of this, reading Carlos's books, when you then watch all the videos, and then you'll get an idea of what it's about. But you have to be here all the time. And again, too, much of what we say is rooted in way of impeccability. And without really knowing that, a lot's going to be lost, because you just have to trust and believe then. Yeah. But if you do that, that will change it. Then you'll say, oh, now I see what they're talking about. Now I see what it's based on. Now I see where the smallness is coming from. Now I see where their confidence and their self-trust is based on. Our confidence cannot be hollow. This is against everything that impeccability is. Our confidence cannot be hollow. It has to have some substantiation, some validity to it. Right, Beena?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So again, it's hard to share that. Like I said, you have to actually come and do it. Yeah, come and do it. Yeah, and it's available. People can do way of impeccability. It's there. It's there. People just have to ask, and they just have to get connected and make the effort to do so. Yeah, yeah. All right. You were saying goodbye. You were wrapping it up,
Oh
Beena.
yes, yes. I was wrapping it up, and when Sil was mentioning about that, okay, we never get okay. We really try to make a lot of effort, really, deliberately. That nothing is coming like, oh, you have to believe and all that. That okay, oh, it is coming from me. No, the first thing is we believe in the sharing. So we still, I never actually saw him or experienced him saying that okay, it is coming from me, even though things are coming from him. Yes, yes. Now he's sharing about that. Okay, yes, I'm adding to what Don Juan has been saying, or Don Benaro was sharing, or Carlos was sharing. Yes, I shared it before, and now I actually have added more to it. Why it is important to say that? Because it brings you in this awareness that yes, not only Don Juan can do this in this world right now, in this time, other people can also add more to this. Like Don Juan at that time, he was also a young man. he was also a new, nobody was aware of it, but or like Carlos, so nobody was there, and think he was bringing new things to the awareness of other people.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah,
can,
yeah.
if it can happen then, it can happen now, and it can, of course, it is going to happen in future also. But still is sharing, other people will come and they will add more to it. So we have a very absolute clarity about this. As things are coming, yes, that can come from universe. You don't need to inherit this. It is not dependent on any kind of like heredity or inheritance or ethnicity, nothing. It
Yeah.
is beyond that. And if we have to be very clear about this, because if we are trying to limit it to ethnicity or any like, okay, yes, any kind of grouping,
Nationality, culture, etc. Right.
culture, religion, or someone, even
Exactly.
someone,
We
then we
limit,
are.
we limit, we limit it. Yes. Yes.
Don Juan is an like really an aspiration for everyone like me.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here in Pakistan
Yeah.
and I really admire him. What he was sharing at that time. I admire Carlos also.
Yes. Yes. Same.
And I admire Sil and I admire Joseph also. Because
Yes.
for me,
Yes.
this is
Yes.
moreness.
Me
This
too.
is
Me
what it
too.
is.
Me too.
So nothing is
Exactly.
coming, okay, oh, it
Exactly.
is, you have to
Exactly.
believe because it is
Exactly.
coming from Sil, or it is coming
Yes.
from Joseph, or it is coming from Beena, or it is
I
coming
have a
from anyone.
huge
No.
admiration for Joseph.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Oh, yes. So it is
Again,
not,
not
yes.
an opinion. I'll substantiate it, but it's not appropriate for me to go into why right now. Because Peter's
Oh,
busy
yes.
talking.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So this is what I was feeling that because again, limiting people in any kind of criterion is actually
Very nice.
not a good gesture. No, no.
Exactly.
It needs to be in
Exactly.
sharing. It needs
Exactly.
to be in
Let's assume
sharing.
more rather than assume less. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Also gender. Also
Most
gender.
people in superiority culture, we
Yeah.
default to assuming less because that makes us higher and better than. Right?
Okay.
We have to be careful. Superiority paradigm is deep within us. We don't always even realize we are doing things that satisfy superiority paradigm.
Oh yes, a
Very
lot,
sad
a
thing.
lot, Sil.
Why we need to
Uh,
understand it. Really,
Yes,
really
because
understand it. Know it.
my okay, the religion I practice is completely, absolutely against any kind of discrimination because that was the first
Exactly.
lesson that there is no superiority of anyone to anyone based on their race and their gender or anything. They were like a big, huge detail, but it's all about only that what they're doing, what their character is. That was the only thing. Even gender and everything is specified. But it's still the superiority paradigm, if you really want to see that, you can see people who are practicing this religion and still you see that. They make it a pride out of their practicing their religion. Oh,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
superior because I'm practicing this.
All religions do it. It's terrible. Not just religions, cultures, nationalities,
Oh,
and
that's
belief systems
seriously.
and whatever.
Also, yes, because at that
Sad.
time, the Arabs were actually saying, calling themselves Arabs, like the most superior
Superior.
one,
Yeah.
and rest of the world, Ajam, which means muted.
Right, right,
You don't know
right.
even how to talk. That was the level of superiority at that time. So it was
Yeah.
your whole religion was based on there is
Yeah.
no superiority on
Right,
anyone, but still we have that. And
right.
very, very strongly rooted people
Yeah,
make
yeah.
it like even this religion make it superiority. Just like, oh yes, this is a medal. I am Muslim. Seriously.
Right, right,
So this
right.
is how things are.
Fascinating.
And
Fascinating stuff.
superiority and ego really, when it creeps in, I saw people who say that, okay, no, I don't want to talk about this and all these things. And still they flaunt in a subtle way because they
Correct, correct, correct,
try
correct,
to distinguish between
correct.
themselves and others. Like
Yeah,
again, you don't
yeah.
know how naughty your ego is. Really. I
Yes, yes. What a troublemaker ego is. Massive big
Absolutely,
troublemaker.
because it can come into like really innocent way. It can come into like a really a demon, and then of course but it's
Yes.
easy to
Yeah.
find a demon and deal with it. But it's
Yeah.
very difficult to find an innocent one,
Yeah.
like a subtle one. I'm
Interesting.
good. I'm
Interesting.
positive. I am this. I am that. All sort of
Self
nonsense. Anyway,
definitions rather than self conceptions,
exactly,
They're
exactly.
limiting. when you say if you want to conceive of yourself rather than define, it's open-ended, it's fluid, it's growing, it takes on more, it's adaptive, it's flexible, it's very wonderful, very wonderful, very big difference.
Okay. Okay, so
Brilliant,
thank you so
brilliant. Yeah,
much.
we
Thank
better
you
end
so
it
much,
because
Joseph.
otherwise
Yes.
I'm going to wet my pants over here. So we better end it.
Okay. No, you are not Carlos. You're not Carlos. Okay. So we are
Yeah.
going and see you guys tomorrow. No, not
All right.
tomorrow.
Bye-bye. And
Yes.
super thank you, Joseph. Super thank you, Sadhguru. Your comments are massively appreciated. I love it.
Now, who is
Absolutely
taking
love it.
time?
Absolutely love it. You add so much. You add so much, especially
Oh,
Joseph.
yes.
Joseph, makes extensive comments. So it adds a lot.
Yes.
Adds a lot. It's
Okay.
super and that's why I
Okay. See
admire
you
Joseph so
guys.
much, by the way, is because
Oh,
of what
yes.
he does. So
Okay.
one of
See
the
you
many.
guys. See
All right.
you guys Friday.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Tomorrow we're doing the morning show, so we won't be here. So see you
Yes.
Friday. By
Bye
the
for
way,
now.
real quick. The morning
Yes.
show, we are on Spotify. Yeah, I think when we did the
Oh,
first
yes.
shows or two, we weren't there, but it takes a little while for these things to get there. So you can find us on Spotify, which is very
Okay.
good. Just the
Okay.
morning show, just search for the morning show and you'll find us.
Okay. So end meeting. Bye for now.
Yeah, bye-bye. End meeting, yes, end meeting.